My sister got pregnant by my husband while living with us, and she wants me to leave so they can be a family. But now she feels deceived because my husband doesn't own any property. I, 34 years old, let my sister Yuli, 28 years old, move in with me a couple of months ago because she was in a very bad financial situation. Yuli had lost her job due to the closure of her company. 2 weeks after that, she became seriously ill due to the West Nile virus. After talking with my parents, I decided to let her move in with me for a few weeks so I could take care of her, monitor her recovery, and make sure she could save on rent, since she clearly wouldn't be able to go back to work for a while. She was probably at her lowest point back then, and I was the one who helped her, because our parents don't live nearby and she doesn't exactly have many friends in a position to help her. So I grabbed her by the arm, forced her to stand up, took her to the door, and then physically pushed her outside. I was very rough with her, but I didn't care. I was furious. The fact that she said we were family and that I couldn't kick her out really enraged me. To sleep with my husband, we weren't family. But now she wanted to use that as an excuse. Once she was outside, she started begging me not to do this. But I slammed the door. Then I went to the guest room. Started putting all her things into her suitcases messily. And without caring if they broke. And in a few minutes, I threw those suitcases outside along with her. I told her to get out or I would call the police. She kept crying. But I just closed the door and went back inside. A few minutes later, my husband came out with his suitcases, telling me he was very sorry. I pretended not to hear him. Yuli kept crying and begging on the porch for about an hour after he left. But I put on my headphones and completely blocked her out. At some point, I no longer heard her whining on the porch. And I realized she had finally left. That same night, I talked to my lawyer. I told him everything that happened. And told him I wanted to file for divorce. I thought about telling my friends and family later. But the next day, I got a call from my parents, telling me that what I had done was horrible. To my parents, I had been cruel and insensitive to my sister, a person who had been going through a lot lately. It seemed very strange to me because until now, my parents have always treated Yuli and me equally. It's not like she was the preferred daughter, or anything like that. But the fact that they were defending her did not sit well with me. They told me they knew she was pregnant, and I couldn't kick her out of the house in that state. Especially when I knew perfectly well that she was between jobs at the moment and recovering from a serious illness. They said it would take her time to get back on her feet. Also, she had no one else here who could take care of her as well as I could. All her friends were in the same financial situation and had their own jobs and families to worry about, instead of taking care of her. So as her sister, the least I could do was forgive her for her stupidity and be there for her. To top it off, they pointed out that it was my husband who had seduced her. And it wasn't her fault, as my husband had been telling her that he was the owner of everything, and that he managed the financial situation at home, because he was a very successful writer of novels and movie scripts. Since he didn't want the fame that came with it, he claimed to remain anonymous. And my sister, who was an idiot, really believed all that. She started thinking that maybe he was someone important, which is why she ended up seducing him later. When she got pregnant, Yuli thought it was finally time to inform me that she had been having an affair with my husband, so that the two of them could kick me out. Unfortunately for them, that plan went wrong. Especially because she hadn't even discussed anything with my husband before telling me all this. She basically ruined everything for herself and for my husband. So I defended my position. First I asked them what sister. I have no sister. Then I argued that I had every right to kick her out, because she was the one who decided to have an affair with my husband, regardless of whether he had a part in it or not. It was clear that she had an equal part. They had both joined together to betray me. So it made no sense to kick my husband out and let her stay, as if nothing had happened. I didn't care whether she was pregnant or not, or whether she could work at that moment or not, because I had already considered all that before and had let her stay with me 4 months. She thanked me by having an affair with my husband while she was under my roof. Also, it's not even like she was in an advanced pregnancy and couldn't handle things. She was probably just a few weeks along, and I'm sure she could manage. Even if she had been 9 months along, I still would have kicked her out, because what she did was disgusting. After all, she was ready to kick me out when she thought our house belonged to my husband. So I see it as poetic justice. But my parents kept insisting on that one point, again and again, especially highlighting how rough I had been with her. I got tired of listening to them and hung up. It was clear they weren't going to get over that topic. And since then, we haven't spoken again. Do you think I did wrong by kicking my pregnant sister out of the house? Update 1. I know that some people think that kicking a pregnant woman out of my house is horrible. But I couldn't let her keep living under my roof either. It's insane. Luckily, the majority think I did the right thing and that she should find a place to stay. But continuing with the update. I blocked my parents yesterday. Unfortunately, all of this has hit me hard. But I can't stop working to recover from what's happening in my personal life. I'm the boss, I'll simply have to show a strong facade and face the situation. So at work everything has been as usual. But as soon as I get home I fall apart. Because emotionally I'm devastated. I haven't let the cracks show in the last few days. But now it's really starting to hurt. My lawyer and I filed the divorce petition a couple of days ago. And soon I think my husband will be notified. I know he's not going to dispute the divorce. He knows me well enough to know that if he does, I'll make sure he pays for it. But at the end of the day, it still hurts. Winning the divorce isn't going to automatically make the situation better for me. I just can't imagine why, after 8 years together, he had to have an affair with my sister. I really believed we were in love. I honestly thought we were going to be together forever and grow old together. But now I'm doubting everything we've had in the last years. Maybe this isn't even the only person he cheated on me with. Maybe this is just the first time he got caught. Even the thought of that breaks my heart. But there's not much I can do about it, except accept it and try to move on. He is the only person who hasn't tried to contact me since I kicked him out. My parents have, and so has Yuli. But that's different, because I know they only want me to accept her again so she can keep staying here for free. It's even more insane that my parents are on her side. At this moment. In my original post, I talked about how my parents had never had a favorite child. They had always treated Yuli and me equally. But now honestly, I don't know what to think about this. I have no expectations of Yuli. With Yuli we were never best friends. But it's not like we got along terribly either. That's why I agreed to help her and allowed her to stay here. We already had a spare room in the house. So I thought, why not? That's what my parents wanted too. So I didn't see any problem in helping her. Because that's what family does. At least I never expected her to betray me like that. You don't expect someone you've been helping for months to stab you in the back. However, with my parents it's another story. Since they had always been reasonable and fair, I expected them to be upset with Yuli. No. I'm not saying they aren't. According to the conversation we had earlier, it was clear they weren't happy with the way Yuli had handled the situation. But they kept insisting that the damage was already done. And that now the only thing we could do was accept what had happened and try to move on. Honestly, I don't know what's going on with my parents. But they have seriously disappointed me with their behavior. I think I've lost all the respect I had for them. And I don't think I can recover it. Because of this situation. Right now I'm emotionally exhausted and mentally. I'm just focused on my work. Everything in my personal life has practically fallen apart. I haven't even talked to my friends about this. But I know at some point I'll have to let them know what's happening. After all, my husband and I have many mutual friends. And I'd prefer they find out about the situation from me than from him. I don't know what he'd tell them at this moment. I no longer know what to expect from anyone. Anyway, right now I'm just trying to focus on a couple of things. For a while. First, of course, that my work doesn't suffer because of this, and I'll make sure of that. Second, I also have to worry about the divorce process. Although I'm 90% sure he's not going to dispute the terms. Since I've decided to be quite fair and reasonable, there's still a small possibility of uncertainty about what he might do. Right now everything is unknown. So I'm preparing all the documentation. Just in case. Besides that, I'm trying to keep my mind as clear as possible because I really don't want to overburden myself and end up in a spiral. That's the last thing I need right now. But venting here about my feelings has been really helpful. And I really appreciate the fact that so many of you have reached out, commented on my post, and been so supportive. You don't know how much I appreciate it. Update 2. As I expected, after he was served, my husband decided to contact me and say that he wasn't going to dispute the divorce. He found the divorce terms very fair. He sent me a text message saying all this. And then in the next, it was what I would do for any family member or friend, help them in a time of need. But she repaid me by having an affair with my husband. Moreover, she had the audacity to tell me that I was the one who should leave the house so they could form their happy family, because she was pregnant. This happened a couple of days ago. Yuli asked my husband and me to sit down in the living room because she had something very important to tell us. I thought she was finally going to move out, because she had recovered quite well in the last few weeks. I assumed she was going to tell us that she was finally going back to work and that she would soon be out of our life. Instead, she told us that she and my husband had been having an affair over the past few weeks and that now she was pregnant. When I looked at my husband, I saw that he was as surprised as I was. Clearly, this wasn't something she had discussed with him before telling me, which explains a lot. Anyway, after she told me she was pregnant with my husband's baby, she added that she understood this was probably a shock for me and that she was very sorry this had happened, but at the end of the day, there was no way to change the past. Now she would greatly appreciate it if I vacated the house, because she would feel very uncomfortable being around me in her current condition. I was furious, but I didn't show it. I simply told her calmly that I was not going to vacate the house, because this property is mine. If anyone had to leave, it would be her, taking along the butt of my cheating husband. They could form their happy family wherever they wanted, because I was going to file for divorce and didn't even want to see them again. I spoke as calmly as I could, controlled my anger, and tried to handle the situation with dignity. They had already caught me off guard, so I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me lose control in front of them. After I told her that this was my property and that I wasn't leaving, she told me that I had to do it. Apparently, she thought I was joking. But then my husband told her that I was definitely not joking and explained to her that he was a house husband and had always been one. Apparently, he had lied to her about everything in the beginning. For context, my husband and I have been together for 8 years. We've been married for the last 5, and a couple of months after we got married, I decided to take a risk and start my own business. Thank God it has gone very well for me. So my husband and I decided that he could stay at home and work as a writer, which was something he liked as a hobby, but now he could pursue full-time. For the past 4 years, he has been at home, working on his big novel and taking care of the household chores. We don't have kids, so he doesn't have much to do. All the property and everything else belongs to me, because technically, I bought it. And we both thought it was fair that I was the owner of everything. I bet he's regretting that now. After he told Yuli that he didn't actually own anything and that he had lied to her about everything, she began to lose her temper with him and claimed that she had been deceived. She started yelling at him, calling him a scammer and a liar. Although it was entertaining to see her lose her mind at him, I wasn't interested in any of that at the moment. I just wanted them both out of my house. I had to step in, make them stop yelling at each other, and tell them to get out of my house right that instant. I wasn't willing to give them time, I just wanted them out of my sight. My husband is relatively smart. He knew there was no way he would come out of this well, since there's nothing more important to me than my self-respect and dignity. I was never going to forgive a cheater. So silently, he went to the bedroom and started packing. Yuli, on the other hand, decided to start begging me on her knees, telling me she would do anything to fix what had happened but that she needed a place to stay. She said I couldn't throw out a pregnant woman, especially one who was going to have a child that would be my nephew. The fact that she mentioned we were family was what really infuriated me. He told me that in the last few days. He had been thinking of ways to apologize to me. But he couldn't come up with anything because everything he thought of seemed weak and insincere. So he decided to get it off his chest by telling me that he was very sorry. By message, he told me that he had lied to Yuli just to impress her, because lately he had been feeling very strange about the fact that he didn't own anything and had to depend on his wife for his finances. No, we don't even have a child. So he couldn't even have the dignity of being a house husband. He felt useless. And since his novel wasn't progressing well either, he felt that he had wasted 4 years of his life on something that was going nowhere. He had been feeling particularly depressed because of that. But he couldn't even acknowledge it to himself, let alone talk to me about it. He said he felt really bad about himself. And when Yuli showed up, before he could even think about how depraved what he was doing was, he started lying to her about everything, trying to impress her. Soon after, they were sleeping together. He thought it was just going to be a slip-up. And even though he felt very guilty, he couldn't control himself. He needed a way to distract himself from everything that was going on. And that was his way. But then she got pregnant. And we had that horrible conversation 2 weeks ago. After which everything went to absolute disaster. He told me he was truly sorry for everything he did. He ruined everything we had. But he promised me that this was the first and last time he cheated on me. He swore that this had never happened before. And said he really needed me to trust him on that. Maybe at some point in the future. If I could, he hoped I would forgive him for everything he had done wrong. That was the message. And after reading it, I ended up crying. Because it was just another reminder of everything I had lost. I thought I had this man, whom I loved and who loved me. But in the span of a day, I lost all of that. Believe me, it's not easy to deal with that. I know that every person who has gone through a divorce or has been cheated on probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. I could say a bunch of horrible things about him to make myself hate him for now, but at the end of the day, it still hurts. I hated myself for crying over that message. But at least after I finished crying, I gathered the strength to block him without replying. To be honest, even though I was very upset about everything, he didn't deserve a response. I wasn't going to forgive him. Especially not now when everything is so recent. After a while, I actually started to feel a bit annoyed with everything he had said. Because all he had to do was talk to me. For my part, I never made him feel bad for choosing to stay at home and work on his novel. I'm not a very creative person. I've never been into writing or anything. Aside from now. Since I really need to get these things off my chest. But I respected his creative side. I didn't see anything wrong with him staying at home. I could understand that maybe his fragile male ego couldn't handle it. Maybe other people made comments. And maybe he just got bitter. But the least he could have done, after 8 years with me, was to tell me what was going on. We got married to support each other. And I was going to be there for him in that. Then maybe we could have worked it out together. But he chose not to. He chose to lean on Yuli. And that's how we ended up in this mess. The more I think about it, the more disgusting and pathetic it seems to me. The fact that he lied to her about so many things, just to make himself look bigger and better. It's pathetic. I loved him just as he was. But that wasn't enough for him. This just will never make sense to me. At least with Yuli I can understand her motive. She wanted to live my life and take it for herself, without making any effort. And she thought she could do that by getting pregnant and moving in with my husband, the supposedly rich man. So I can simply choose to ignore her existence now. In a few months, I'll be done with the divorce. And then I'll never have to see him or think about him again. Update 3. A couple of days have passed since my last update. And I had had a few quiet days. But this morning my parents showed up at my house. It seemed strange to me because in the last few years, since they moved to my dad's hometown to run the family business with my uncle, they almost never visit us. Usually, it was Yuli and I who had to go visit them. So the fact that they had taken a flight to come see me was already a big deal. But I knew they were only here to talk about Yuli. That's why when I opened the door, I told them that if they were here to talk about her, I really didn't want to hear them. After all, there's only one Sunday in the week. And I really didn't want to waste mine going over the same thing again. I had already said everything I had to say. And so had they. Right now, we had nothing more to discuss about that situation. I also made it very clear to them that I would only let them in if they first apologized to me. So they could apologize to me right now. Or they could leave. I made my boundaries very clear. But my parents told me that they had come specifically to talk to me about Yuli. They said we had to talk about this because it wasn't right how I was treating them. And it also wasn't right how I was treating Yuli. To them, we were a family. And we fix things differently. Once again, they were bringing up the family topic. And just like with Yuli, I also lost patience with them. This is not how families treat each other. At least not in the kind of family I would like to have. I'll at least grant that in this family, we fix things differently. My sister sleeping with my husband and me kicking her out of my house. That's very different from normal families. I completely exposed my parents. They kept trying to mumble and look for arguments. But I didn't even let them talk. I steamrolled over all their arguments. After I finished, my mom was literally reduced to tears. But they were on my territory. I could talk to them however I wanted. Especially because they decided to bother me this morning. But this whole talk they should be having with Yuli. With the person who acted badly. Not me. Anyway. After I finished yelling at them, my mom was crying so hard that my dad just told me that he never wanted to speak to me again. Because I was a horrible daughter. For making my own mother cry like that. The woman who gave me life. But I don't care. They can believe I'm crazy. I know I'm not, and that's enough for me. If there are a couple of crazy ones, it's my parents. Though my sister isn't very sane either. If I'm being honest. Update 4. It's been a month since my last update. And I haven't been in contact with anyone in my family. Not with Yuli, and definitely not with my parents. I only know that they are sending her money. As for my future ex-husband, I heard from a couple of people that he's now living with his parents. Once the divorce is finalized, he plans to move to another state. Well, before you ask me, I don't know what he's going to do with his child. By this point, practically, all of our friends know exactly what happened. And most of them have started to exclude him from their lives. At least most of them. Some don't want to get involved and are trying to stay neutral. All I know is that my life is getting back on track slowly, but steadily. And I will do anything to protect my peace. Right now, I'm not exactly happy. But at least I'm calm. Which is an improvement from last month. Little by little, I know I'll be happy again. I mean, all bad things end eventually, right? Update 5. I have a fairly recent update. Because there have been some developments that you might want to know about. So I'm not going to leave you without finding out. My sister has lost the pregnancy and has been blaming me. Because, according to her, she lost it due to all the stress I've caused her. My parents are also on that same crusade. The good thing is they're not bothering me directly. But these are news I'm hearing through neutral people, in quotes, who say they don't want to take sides, but who in some way are doing so by accusing me of having killed a child because of my pride. I find it curious, because none of them has decided to take my sister into their home. So from my point of view, they should also be guilty by their own standards. I tried to be a good sister to her, helping her when I could. But if she betrays me, then she's the same as any stranger. She's no longer my responsibility. If she cared about her pregnancy, she shouldn't have slept with someone's husband, who happened to be her sister's husband. Or at least she should have used protection. None of this is normal in the fantasy world some people live in. But I don't care. When accusations come from people as irrational as they are, they're not worth spending time on. Update 6. My ex-husband contacted me a few hours ago, and you won't believe what he had to say. No, he didn't ask me to come back. No, we haven't ended on bad terms in quotes. That's why I replied. He has accepted, as a man, that he was wrong. And at least he's made the divorce easier for me. So I don't hold a grudge. Though more than anything, I do it for myself. It's not worth my time hating him or thinking about him in any way. No cheater is worth it. I think what he had to tell me is quite interesting, because basically, he confirmed to me that my sister wasn't pregnant. He called me to tell me, because he knew that many people were talking badly about me and that I needed to know the truth. He's also told those people he knows because he had been asking her for proof of the pregnancy and had asked to go with her to a medical appointment on several occasions. But she was always quite evasive about it. Finally, the news came that she had lost it. But when he asked for proof of the pregnancy, she had none. He spoke to my parents and they had none either. There is no proof that she was ever pregnant, or that she lost it. She simply woke up one day and told everyone that she had lost the baby. So that's where all this ends. And that's where the big fuck you begins. For all those who have been accusing me of making my sister lose the baby. My parents have tried to contact me to repair the relationship. And they've even stopped funding my sister, now that they won't be grandparents. But this gesture doesn't mean much to me. I don't care what they do now with my sister. What I wanted was for them to support me, like any parent would, with a daughter who had been betrayed. So no, the fuck you is also for them. So my sister lost a sister, a house, and my help for sleeping with my husband and faking a pregnancy. And my parents have lost a daughter for choosing a fake pregnancy over her. I think the three of them are ready to go to Las Vegas and gamble. I'm sure they'll do just great.